after you finish putting on the Tefillin Shel Yad. And we learned that putting on the Tefillin Shel Yad, start off by putting it on all the way on top, and then you wrap it around your arm, and then there's more to do on the palm, but this is done after you put on the Shel Rosh. So after, what we're saying here is after you put on the Shel Yad up until the palm of the hand, so at that point, what we should do is you take the Tefillin Shel Rosh and you take it out of the cover that covers the Tefillin Shel Rosh. So you're taking it out, and remember we learned that you take it out in a very special way, a careful way, and then you give it a kiss. So that's what you would do with the Shel Rosh. You take out the Tefillin Shel Rosh from its cover, and you put on the Tefillin Shel Rosh also be'amida, standing, and then you tighten it. After you put it on your head, you want to be sure that it's tight, and you also want to be sure that it's in its right place. Now, what's the right place? So we learned about it earlier, that in front it should be in the middle, in the back it should be under the bone, and also in the middle. Shouldn't go below the hairline. So we have to be sure after you put on the Shel Rosh, you put it on properly. And after you have the Shel Yad up until your palm, and you have the Shel Rosh on, then Yimshech es haretzua milmata al ha'etzba. What you need to do is Yimshach es haretzua milmata al ha'etzba ha'imtzois. You need to. What happens here is you've put the Shel Yad on, and then you've put it around the way you need to on the arm. Now you're up to this. Now you have to put, as it goes on and explains, you put on the middle finger 3 times. You put it around 3 times. Once, twice, and a 3rd time. So the Seviv Olav Shloisha Sibuvim, you put it around your middle finger 3 times, and then Yavir Mulmato Eshe'edus Haritzua Lekafayad, and then whatever is left, you bring it back to the palm, and you surround it. You put it around your palm, the leftover. Depending on how big the Ritzuas is, will tell you how much more you have. So as we mentioned yesterday, it's not a bad idea to have it a little bigger than what you normally do, because if you want to put on tefillin with another person, their arms might be bigger. And if they're not, you might run into a little bit of a problem. Hold on, we'll get to that in just 1 minute. And after putting it around, as we said 3 times, it says Sibuv Rishon ala Perek HaMechuber lekaf hayad. The first one goes around the top part, which is connected to the cut of the palm. That, the finger is divided into 3 parts. So the first one goes around the top part that's connected to the palm. And the Sibov Hasheni goes on the middle one. And Sibov Hashlishi Shuv al HaPerek HaMechuber lekaf hayad. Then you go back to the one that's the top part that's connected to the palm. Correct. Correct. Well, you don't necessarily need to. Some people, to separate one, to try to separate it. So, but it doesn't say it has to be separated. No. Not from what I've seen. What's that? Yeah. No, but again, the way we do it is it goes on top of the and then you go back to the palm of the hand, and that's the way it's now at the end. If you remember, we talked about another concept, and when you're finished with this, it says v'yikshayr. So there are again different customs as to whether you actually make a kesher or not. And as I pointed out, I actually do make that kesher. There are those, again, amongst even Chabad minhagim, different ways. Some say that it's sufficient that you don't have to make a full kesher. It's sufficient just to stick it in, so that it's sort of another. You add another, just one time, and that's sufficient, so that it holds it tight. So the yiksha could also mean that you actually make a kesher. Well, but it's not the kesher. No, the kesher would be if you go like this and then you go like this again. Then it makes it into a kesher. This way it's a kesher. You have to go back. Right. That's the way the kesher is. Correct, Angel. That is correct. Yeah. So there's, again, different, and some people will tell you that Rabbi did it this way or that Rabbi did it that way or whatever. But again, the way the Lashon and Shulchan Aruch is v'yikshayr. Yesh lahakpid ma'od. We mentioned this earlier, but he repeats it again, that you have to be especially careful. We're talking about the ritzuos now. So with the ritzuos that you put around, that you wrap around your hand, your arm, and around your head. So you have the ritzuos all over. You have it here, you have it over here, and you have it over here, and then you have it around your head. But yesh lahakpid ma'od, you have to be especially careful. Sorry, let me get this battery again. You have to be especially careful that al chalki haritzua shemekayim b'ayim asike mitzvahs hatefillin, on the parts of the ritzua with which you actually fulfill the ikar, the most important aspect of the halacha, and we talked about that, which is shalei yishapech tzidam hashachar klapei panim, so that the ones that the part of the tefillin that you fulfill the most important aspect of the mitzvah, and we'll say what it is in a minute, so that it shouldn't be transferred from the black to the white. In other words, what's supposed to be showing on the outside is the black, and sometimes it turns over. You have to be extremely careful for it not to turn over. The Elohei, what are those most important parts? That's the first time around the arm. So the first time where you make that kesher. So the first time around is very important. With doing that, you've already fulfilled the mitzvah. So that is the most important aspect of it. And then also the ritzua that goes around the head. The rest, it's better also to be careful, but the obligation is to make sure that this first part and around your head, it's especially important, and obviously that's where often it becomes a problem, and you don't even realize that you put on the shulrush, and the shulrush is sometimes backwards. Backwards meaning the black is on the inside, the white is on the outside. It just got messed up as you put it on. And it's always good to have make when you tighten it, feel it so it didn't get tangled, and you ended up having the retzuas turned backwards. In other words, the way they need to be.
Yeah, retzuas are complete black on both sides.
Still has to be that way. Yeah.
What about the straps hanging down?
Again, so it should be, but again, it's not. If it didn't,
so having black doesn't make it better.
It's a question. There's actually some opinions that say that you shouldn't have it black. Yes, some have it that way, and actually, I have personally found I've tried using the black one, and what I have found actually twice when I had the black on both sides, both times it was a problem. I found that the black on the outer side, on the inner side, was actually not part of the ritzua. It was like a stripe that a piece of leather or something that was added on the inside, which isn't the way it should be. So each time I sent it back to the place that I bought it, and they said, right, I don't know what happened. I don't know why this is this, and they replaced it with another one.
Black and white now?
Yes.
When you give it to silver, they checked it is.
They checked when I gave it back. They checked it and they found that yes, there was a problem with it. So, well, you can sometimes see where you can see it is really on the bottom if it starts separating, or somewhere along the way if it's starting to separate. It shouldn't. It should be one piece. Anyway. Should be, but I got it from a good sefer, and in spite of that, where it came from originally, it's made very well. And if it's not, sort of abused along the way, it'll stick that way. But if it gets a little rough treatment, it'll, if it's not the proper way or the proper one, that could be a problem. Well, it could be not kosher if it's not the right one, if it's a problem. What's that? Well, it could be a problem. I mean, it's not, you have the tefillin, but they added to the ritzua a piece that shouldn't have been there. Whatever. I mean, it's like you find with some, like you'd find with parshas that are not written properly. They look all well, but in the end, you find out who wrote it. They have found, especially in today's day and age, when you get film from Eretz Yisrael, if you don't know where it's coming from, they've even found where Arabs were writing the film. Film are very expensive today, and if you want to get a cheaper pair of film, make sure you know where that cheaper pair of film is coming from, how they can afford to sell you a nice pair of film for cheap, and it's often a problem. Okay. I think what did we say? 50 what?
651. Is 653.5.
We'll learn another halacha. Asmachas tefillin shel reish tefillin shel yad. Yasmis asanochas tefillin shel reish lanochas tefillin shel yad. You put on the shel yad, and you have to make sure to immediately after put on the shel reish, not to interrupt in between. The loishum hefsik dibur beineim, certainly not to be speaking in between. You can't put on the shel yad and then speak and then put on the shel reish. That's a hefsik. Because we make one bracha, and one bracha is on the tefillin shel yad, and the tefillin shel yad, the bracha on the tefillin shel yad goes for the shel reish as well. So in order for this same bracha to be able to go for both, you have to make sure not to be mafsik, not to interrupt in between. So here he says, what about tefillin shel Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin? We don't make a special bracha there. So since we don't make a special bracha, so you would assume reason you have to put it right after without interrupting because of the bracha. But if you're not making a bracha, so why can't I interrupt? What's that? Well, you still shouldn't interrupt. So that's what we're learning. The question is, why shouldn't you be able to? The only reason you should.
Show God, Rashi, you don't interrupt no matter what.
So hang in there. Let me finish. So right now we're saying that we should not interrupt, and we're talking about not interrupting with speaking. Now, why shouldn't you interrupt with speaking? You would think you're not making a bracha. Interrupt with speaking. The only reason you shouldn't interrupt because the bracha of the Shal Yad is for the Shal Reish also. And if you're going to interrupt in between Shal Yad and Shal Reish, you're going to make a hefsek, an interruption between the brachas. But if you're not making a bracha on Rabbeinu Tam's, what's the problem with interrupting? So the reason is, nevertheless, all of lismich as a tefillin shal rosh, tefillin shal yad, the leishum hefsek, tzicha b'neim. Still, you should not interrupt with speaking. Shenemar, and the reason is because the pasuk says, the pasuk says you should have it as la'ois al yodcha, as a sign on your hand, and ulazikarim b'neinecha, and as a sign between your eyes. And mashma sheshneim chashuvim kehavia v'asiya achas. So, although what's obvious a problem is if you're using one bracha for both. But what he's saying is that in addition to the fact that we're using one bracha for both, it also seems to be implied from the way the pasuk expresses itself that the asiya, the act that you're doing in putting on the tefillin, it should be one act with putting on the shal yad and then the shal rosh without interrupting and making it into two separate activities. And so this is, so in other words, there's no chiyuv, but still there's like an implication from a pasuk. So that's why there's a specific halacha that in between shal yad and shal rosh, even if Rabbeinu Tam is not to just speak, to make a hefsek, to make an interruption. But when it comes to something that is a chiyuv for you to do, which is such as answering amen in between, that's not just an interruption of your speaking in between. So there, since there's no chiyuv of not interrupting, and this is a chiyuv to answer amen, so for Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, in between the shal yad and shal rosh, you can answer and should answer amen in between.
Amen status, like Denver at that point, or an amen status was support.
You could any amen. So that's why you don't speak, but something that's a chiyuv is a different story. Okay.